The CFP designation can be a career changer, especially for younger financial advisors or people newer getting into the business. Here's the story on exactly how I passed the CFP exam. I studied for the final exam for the CFP designation for about 3 weeks, but that study process really starts with the path in which I took towards getting approved to take the final exam. There are several different ways that someone can be approved to sit for the comprehensive CFP exam, and those ways have changed throughout the years. They've even changed since the last time I talked about this in a video a few years ago. Probably the most common way for young people today that are looking to become financial advisors to be approved to sit for the CFP exam is by completing all of the College for Financial Planning Board's required educational work through their undergraduate college degree. There are now hundreds of universities that the CFP board has said, yes, this university's personal financial planning program, or whatever it's titled at that individual college, yes, this program counts towards our educational requirements. And that approval is very, very nice for students who might be attending that university that ultimately want to take the CFP exam, or for high school students looking at CFP approved university material. Because if you pass the financial planning undergraduate program at the university that the CFP board approves, then you get the thumbs up. You are now allowed to sit for the final CFP exam. Yes, you're probably still gonna have to study a bit more for that test, but there's no other requirements you need to do. Now for me, the finance program at the university that I attended, it did not count towards the CFP's educational requirement. One of my options could have been, and fortunately I didn't have to take this route, could have been taking night classes at the nearest university that offered CFP approved material and courses so that I could pass like 6 college classes to get the educational requirements completed to be allowed to sit for the exam. Nowadays, if you're in that boat, you can do all of those educational requirements online, either through different universities' online financial planning programs or through some third-party providers. I know Kaplan has online financial planning classes that count as approval for the education requirement. But personally, I was really, really lucky because I got to take the accelerated path. And the accelerated path is becoming more and more common as the CFP board allows more designations to count towards the educational requirement. So when I took the CFP exam, there were only a few. I believe you had to either have a PhD, a CFA designation, or a CPA designation. And if you had one of those, they would say, yep, you have done enough finance testing to be approved to skip all of our regular educational requirements and sit for the CFP exam. Nowadays, I think there are more than 10 designations that the CFP board counts towards meeting their educational requirements, including like the CLU and maybe the CHFC, which is a much shorter designation for financial advisors. And if you're someone who has one of those designations, you can choose to take the accelerated path, which was what I did, and I was really glad to be able to do that. That's really how I got to that short 3-week study window. In the accelerated path, this has changed over the past 3 years, but I just had to look through a financial planning case on Kaplan's website, understand it, and what I did was write out a bunch of variables and potential recommendations, and then I had to do a voice recording and upload that voice recording to a grader describing everything I would recommend to that financial planning client case. I think it took me like 6 or 8 hours total to do that work and upload that. And then when the grader passed me on that voice recording financial planning case, I got the approval to go ahead and sit for the CFP exam. I scheduled my CFP exam sitting for about a month out from once I got the approval. And the only study material I used, getting into some of the details now, was the Kaplan Accelerated Path CFP Final Exam Study Guide. That's sort of a mouthful, but it's basically the booklet that they give you if you are taking the accelerated path to study from. It's nice because they assume you already have some finance industry knowledge. There's very little basic or rudimentary information in it. And it was very convenient that, in my opinion, Kaplan skipped out on all of the unnecessary details that they certainly could have bored you with, or me with, but they gave you the highlights of the material that really you needed to learn to pass the exam, and they condensed it into a booklet that was really not that significant. So I studied for 3 hours a day every day to give you the kind of the study routine. And I have plenty of videos on this channel about study routines and how to stick to them. But I studied 3 hours a day every day for like 3 weeks. So it's really not a grueling process if you already have the background knowledge and are relatively well prepared to take the exam. I simply went through each chapter of that Kaplan Accelerated Path Study Guide and did the quiz questions at the end of each chapter. I would get, let's say, 60% of them right, 40% of them wrong. I would look at the questions that I got wrong and look at the answer. If I understood it, great, I would make the correction. If I didn't, I'd go back into the chapter of the study guide that I just read, look at the relevant section and reread it and re-understand it and relate that to the correct answer that I had just been shown. And that's really when the important learning happens on the questions that you get wrong. So totally recommend going through practice questions throughout your whole CFP study process, even if it's just a few weeks. Anytime you get a practice question wrong, re-review the material, teach yourself on how to do it the right way, and then maybe actually do the question again and answer it correctly. Even though you just saw the correct answer, it's going to be easy to answer. But what that helps to do is reinforce the thought process your brain has to go through to get to the correct final answer for that type of problem. And if you've done that successfully once in your head, then the next time you have to do it, which might be on the CFP exam, hopefully you can do it well and answer the question correctly. Each few days I would get through one of the chapters and then I would get to the next section. Again, the book just gave you the overview material, the minimum that you would need to know to answer enough questions correctly on the exam. I don't know the exact score I got on the CFP exam, but I bet it wasn't that much higher than the minimum required passing score at that time of 70%. I bet I scored like a 73 or something, just because there were definitely questions I didn't know. And there are some really detailed questions, especially in the estate planning section, on how different types of trusts can work in different ways. The study guide I had used, again, it didn't get into any of those details. And I'm not an estate planning professional, so even though I was doing financial planning and still am, I wasn't getting into the legal differences of very minute differences in trust. So I honestly did not know any of the answers or potential answers for some of those more difficult estate planning questions, but that's okay because you only have to get 70% of the questions right. And I felt like the study guide for the Accelerated Path from Kaplan definitely prepared me well enough to be able to answer them that way. Now, if you went that more traditional route and got the educational credits done through your university classes, depending on how good your professors were, hopefully they were giving you quizzes and exams throughout the semester that sort of corresponded to how questions are going to be asked on the CFP exam. I would guess that most professors don't, because they probably don't just see their class as a CFP prep course, even though that would be nice if they did. So you certainly will want to spend some time doing what I did and reading through CFP, real CFP study material to get an idea on just some of the terminology and the phrasing, but most importantly, how the practice questions are written, worded, and how you need to, or what you need to calculate and how you need to solve them to get the answer right. So the biggest tip I can give in this video is to just do as many practice questions as possible. Just as I said during that 3-week period, every time a practice question came up, I was doing it and practicing from it and learning from it. I did the mock exam, also an important step in my opinion in the prep process. I did the one mock exam that the CFP board offered at that time. It was online on their website. Hopefully this has improved by now. Someone let me know in the comments if you've done the online mock exam more recently. But when I did it a few years ago, you complete the whole mock exam and it shows you your score by section, and then you click, okay, great, you click next. And then after you click next, all of the questions you just were asked and all of your answers and all of the scores on those questions are all gone. Like, you don't get to learn from them. I thought I was gonna get to download a PDF to use as some sort of resource or guide to learn from. So that was a lot of wasted time for me. So if the online mock exam still works the same way through the CFP board, make sure to give yourself enough time while you're in the browser, web browser still, to click through and learn from the questions that you did get wrong, because man, that was annoying and disheartening. I was like, wait, I can't study from this. Now I can't pass the exam. I felt like I was getting set up for failure or something. If you're doing some other test prep process, certainly recommend you do the mock exam that they offer to you. As many practice questions as you can get, and the mock exam is just another 200 practice questions or however many it's going to be. All of that practice is going to best prepare you to learn as much information as you can. One easier factor about the CFP exam than a couple of other exams that I've done is that they give you all of the required formulas that you'll need to answer any of the math problems on that exam. They give it to you electronically. In my case, it was just another page within the computer window that you could pull up at any time. So because of that, you don't need to worry about memorizing any formulas or practicing acronyms or things like that the night before. They literally give all that to you on a guide, which in my opinion made the exam a little too, I don't want to say too easy, but easier than it maybe should have been given the rigor and the prestige that it carries within the financial planning field. If you prepare well, if you've done enough practice questions, let's call it 1,000 or more practice questions, which may or may not sound like a big number to you, but it's not too significant for any test prep process. If you've done at least, let's say 1,000 of them, you're gonna be pretty well prepared. Assuming you have answered many of them correctly, and the ones you get wrong, you go back through and review and understand how to get it correctly the next time, you're gonna be pretty well prepared. So practice questions and that one mock exam are the best things you can do to give yourself the best chance of passing the CFP exam. If you have any other questions for me about my personal journey through that process, go ahead, drop me an email or a comment down below. I always get back to all of them. As always, thanks for watching.